I feel like I've seen Enlightenment, and I thought it was going to be about levitating and telekinesis, and it's actually just about an increased awareness of how annoying I am. That Jessa impression.
I don't know about that Jessa impression.
Hello. Well.
Hey, hi, hello.
Remember this timeline?
No, not at all. This is a problem.
I wanted to look. I think the last episode, when I looked the other day, we put out was like September 24th. So we're about 2 months.
Oh, it feels like forever.
200 years
ago. I don't know if I remember how to do it.
So same. Oh God, we were in soccer season. I'm looking at the calendar.
I'd be surprised if anyone is still interested in listening.
There's a couple people. There's someone who thinks we put it on the Patreon. They left a 3-star review about that. Well, you're wrong. We didn't put it on the Patreon. We've been busy. We had just gotten legally married, I think. Remember that?
We got married and bailed.
The whole thing was a ploy to get married. So my dad had just come out for us to plant bamboo. And we were frantically getting by we I mean Mark, frantically getting the backyard ready for a wedding. We went and legally got married at a jail. And yeah, it was like kind of hard to be in the podcast space. I mean, I still end up podcasting on my Patreon or whatever, but it was logistically hard to just sit down and record. And it was mentally hard to be, I mean, you were just doing physical labor all day, every day. So, we kind of eventually just surrendered to the fact that we weren't going to put out another episode until the wedding. And so, but then we like broke the studio down for the wedding because family was staying here. And so the studio was the teenage lounge where they were sleeping. And the wedding was amazing. Our families came. The photographer got the flu, and the photographer was a friend of mine from the West Coast, and he got the flu Friday, like right before he was supposed to fly out. And so
we got boomer photos of
yeah.
Well, it's not all boomer. We got a couple of good ones, but
we got a couple good ones, but given what happened next, I think I did a good job of accepting the no photographer. It was like one of the only, we had nice flowers. We had amazing flowers. Someone who, I don't know, follows me on Instagram, I assume listens to one of the podcasts, does the most beautiful flowers you've ever seen in North Carolina. So we had amazing flowers. Most of the rest was DIY. We made our own cake. But the photographer was one thing that I was like, and weirdly, I was very set on like, I want family photos. I want photos with all of our families together. I want our family's photos. Like I was very set on that. And limitation is an oracle. I've not yet figured out why we couldn't have a photographer for that, but we got a couple photos, I guess. The wedding was beautiful, though, and fun. My niece got sick because what we did was like everyone came in on Friday. Saturday, we did the quote unquote rehearsal dinner here at the house and just had like burgers, cooked burgers on the grill and hung with the families Saturday. And I think my niece was maybe already sick, but then that didn't make itself known until Sunday morning. And the ceremony was beautiful. I mean, it's hard to touch the magic of that now, weirdly. I guess not weirdly, but then we went out, we had a dinner, and then we rented a skating rink for the reception. And I think everybody was like kind of tapped out by that, except for us, but me and you had a blast.
yeah.
Me and you and the kids. And then we left straight from there for just a 2-night honeymoon in somewhere in North Carolina. And then when we got back, my mom and sister stayed in town to hang with the kids, and also so they didn't have to just fly right back to the West Coast. And when we got back, my mom had the flu. And they left the next day, and then the next day, Coco had the flu. And you were under the weather for sure.
I may have gotten started to get it, and then I don't know. We have like a pretty good protocol. If you start feeling sick, or if somebody in the house is sick, oregano oil is key.
It's so good.
And I'd also just been pretty healthy, like doing a lot of work and stuff. I think my body was I was like pretty rock solid. So I might have started to catch it and just had like 2 days of a little low energy under the weather, but I never really got the flu.
But Mark definitely like pushed his body to the max. And so Mark kind of goes in these cycles of like physically exerting himself to the maximum on a project and then crashing. Oh, the fantasies. We were at one point, because we were on such a roll of getting all these projects done that we really thought we were going to like then start on this major renovation in the living room where we're putting a bookshelf up and turning a loft into a bedroom. And something just kept telling me because I needed to pull the permits for that before the wedding if we were going to start it right after. And something just kept telling me like, no, you're not going to be able to get that done. And I just assumed it was because like I only do the administrative stuff and then you have to do all the labor. So I just was like, no, it's going to be rest. It's going to be time to rest. Ugh, I thought I was going to get through this without crying. So,
and boy, were you right.
was I ever? So we still have bamboo in the backyard. The second shipment of bamboo came and we waited to put it in so we could use it as a backdrop for the wedding. And just because we like literally did not have time to plant it, it's so labor intensive. And we were about to get started on the podcast again, but we're just waiting for you to recover. And then you slipped into this kind of like melancholic depression thing also. And you're just like, I don't know what is going on, but it's just this nostalgic melancholy. Like, I don't know. Do you think you knew?
I don't know, maybe, but it's just,
you just get that sometimes.
As you brought up this morning, we were talking and it's typical of fall for me is like I go into that. I've always had it my whole life. Like I can always feel when fall is about to shift, like at the end of summer. There's like just this one day that like it hits where I'm like deeply melancholic and nostalgic. And it's tiny things. It's like the smell of the air. And I mean, it's still summer, really. Like there's no sign of leaves or anything, but I'm like, there's an internal clock that it's like something shifting and it's time to go into internal mode and like assess things. And so I typically then start to like accidentally stumble upon old photos or like thoughts of old parts of my life. And it all just becomes like very heavy. And the more it's happened in my life, like it feels like a mini life review or something, as if I'm like dying and I'm going to like assess my life and what are you okay with? What are your regrets? What do you have to kind of accept and move forward? And so fall is always like kind of heavy for me. I enjoy it too, though. It's like, it's a warm, cozy kind of feeling, but then there's a deep uncomfortableness with the sobering of like your life. You just, and it's beautiful. Like I don't have that many regrets, but it's hard to describe. And I you know, in a lot of years I've resisted it, and I would tend to go to some kind of substance to try to make it feel okay. And I've had to learn more and more, like, to don't do that, you know?
Yeah, Mark's, like, pattern of starting to smoke weed, it's almost always in December. Like, he just buckles under the pressure of the winter.
Yeah.
You are very synced up to the seasons, for sure. Because then spring comes, and you're just like a busy bee.
I wonder if that's, like, it is a Capricorn thing, too. Like, just because it's very earthy, I kind of am, like, susceptible to those natural shifts. But yeah, I definitely started feeling that like pretty quickly around the wedding. And then it did coincide, with a very heavy thing in your life and both of our lives, I guess. So I don't know if it was a premonition of that or just combined or coincidence, you know, but.
Yeah, because you just kept saying like, and this is not the first time you've said it, so I didn't put a lot of stock in it, but you were just like, I have this fucking ominous feeling.
Yeah.
So I think we were 10 days out from the wedding and starting to, I mean, literally the flowers were still on the table. And I also, I mean, it's, you know, part of it's perimenopause, I think. It's also just like deconditioning productivity. But even if I didn't put a lot of physical labor in, which I did do more physical labor this summer than I've done in a long time, just focusing hard on something for a while, like, you know, or having like just a wedding, the big build up to the wedding, and then it happened, you know, it's the transition. I notice like I need a lot of rest in between transitions. And so I feel like we were just turning a corner and just starting to land again. And we were actually about to do our first live stream, our October live stream. For the people on that Patreon, we'll make it up to you, but we haven't gotten there yet. So we were just about to do that live stream that night, I think, for the Patreon. Maybe it was the next night. And we're just catching up on work. It was the end of the month. And if you're on my Patreon, that's when I do like at least half of my work is in that last week because I have ADHD. And I was in the kitchen making dinner with Lily and Coco and your computer died right before the... I
was going to say, there's another a weird part. Like, so where I'm at right now, I feel like I am, as I was talking to you this morning, I'm like that feeling that we all sometimes have where you're like kind of shifting timelines or just a lot of things change at once and you kind of have to adapt. You try to like pull your same timeline through and just everything happens where you just get ejected from a certain perspective of like state of consciousness that you're in, the way you're viewing life, that it all of a sudden you're just like in a different world. And the fall, like I said, does do that to me kind of. It shifts me out, but so many things were happening. Like we were getting married. That was a huge shift in things. And my computer, my studio computer where like all my music is, it's something that I've built over years and years. And when I've had to switch computers, when I'm forced to, when there's a technical issue, I usually have the ability to clone the computer. Because when you're building like plugins and all these like different things, it's hard to rebuild that from scratch. I typically have things backed up and stuff, but this computer crash was weird. Like it just didn't turn on one day, you know? And I was like trying to assess it, trying to figure out all kinds of different things, took it to the Mac store. Basically, it was a logic board issue, something where you just can't get it to come back. You're going to lose everything. I had all my songs and everything, of course, backed up, but the plugins and all the stuff I had built, gone. And so to me, that was like a huge timeline shift because that's such an anchor in my life is like whenever I'm wanting to be creative, I can go touch base with my machine and like work. And now I couldn't, you know?
Yeah, it basically shuts down the whole studio.
The whole studio. And then I was downstairs actually like pulling that computer apart, trying to salvage the hard drives so I could maybe get some of that information and try to clone part of the hard drive. But just a side note, Macs are so annoying these days. I had to it was like a NASA operation just to get the damn thing apart and try to salvage it. Long story, I couldn't salvage anything. So I had to buy a new computer and I'm building it from scratch, it's taken a week and I'm still not done trying to get it all operating. But so that was annoying. So I was down there everything was torn apart, you know, trying to get into the hard drives. And then I got a call from a Delaware number that was not on my phone. And oddly, I was listening to a podcast about death in the family, which is weird.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a spiritual podcast. It was like a Rodney Mullen. It was like I'm a big fan of him. I used to skateboard as a kid. And that dude is an inspiration. And I had just found an interview with him. And I was like, oh, I want to listen to this. Not something spiritual. And sure enough, it's just like death.
Yeah. And it's weird now to look at all of the like clues. I mean, my kids are a little bit older and we don't have Sunny this year for Halloween, but I typically have their Halloween costumes in September. And this was the 29th, and I didn't get anyone anything. And no one had, like, Phoenix had just made plans to go be with a friend, but there was 0 Halloween plans. Coco and I were driving I think we just went to get something for dinner or something. I can't remember where we went, but we were driving back and talking about her experience when her biological dad, it's complicated. She was raised by her biological dad's family while I was on drugs. So she was close to those grandparents, and we were discussing her issues with travel, and like specifically she had really traumatic trips to go to the West Coast when each grandparent died. And so we were discussing the death of her grandparents on that side. And my phone was next to me. My phone was functioning because I was receiving texts and notifications from other things. But I think the universe knew that like the best way for me to receive this news was through you rather than a frantic call from my sister. But so Mark,
I got the call originally. It was a Delaware number. And like I said, I was listening to a thing about death. And so I, for a second, was like, a Delaware number. It's got to be somebody related to Jessa. But I think I have everybody in my phone. So I just canceled it. And then it immediately called back. And I was like, oh, something's wrong. Who is this? You know, so I answered. And it was your sister, Allie. And she was very frantic and was like, Mark, is this you? And I was like, yeah, hey. And she's like, it's Allie. And I don't remember exactly what she said. It was so crazy, but she said I was trying to get a hold of Jessa. And she pretty straight up just said, Dad's dead. But then was like, the ambulance is on the way. He passed out in the bathroom. Kiki thinks he's dead. And so then I just kind of freaked out and was like, oh my God, Allie, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm on the way to the house. Just tell Jessa and get by your phones. I'll update you. And so, you know, previous to this, a little bit, he had been, you can tell all that story, but he had been going through a lot of surgeries and having a lot of difficulties. So it was a surprise, but it also was like, we were all kind of close to having to touch that potential reality, I think. But within those 5 seconds, it was just like right here. So of course I came upstairs, and yeah, you guys were in the kitchen having a grand old time, you know, laughing and talking. And so I had to just pull you out of that. And I then started getting emotional because it was hitting me, and that I had to tell you, which, I mean, how am I going to tell you? I don't know really how to do that except just to say it, you know?
Yeah. I don't even know that you had to say it. I mean, I think you were getting ready to play Roblox with Sonny. He like plays Roblox with his daughter when she's at her mom's house. And so I initially was afraid it had something to do with Sonny because you looked fucked up. But then the way you sat me down before you told me, I knew, like, you know, the energy would be different, you know. And then you said Allie called me, and then
I started crying.
Scanned for a second. My dad, no one was expecting this and like a sudden this. So my dad was only 71. And this experience has not helped my feelings about Western medicine at all. I think Western medicine's great. Oh, we left out fucking, the reason that we didn't put a podcast out before the wedding was because 2 weeks before the wedding, we did a big garage sale to try to clear things out to make space for the wedding. And Sonny climbed a tree, like a crepe myrtle, and was like 4 feet off the ground, 3 feet away from Mark while he was selling a ping pong table, and jumped out of the tree, fell on her arm weird, and had just an absolute gnarly arm break, which look like a dislocated elbow. And God, what an insane 2 months we've had.
I'm telling you, the timeline shifts. It's like when reality starts ejecting you from a timeline, it's like there's nothing you can do. I mean, it was just one thing after another that was just trying to kind of like survive through it. That's why it was just impossible to do a podcast. You know, I think in a perfect world, it would have been nice to share what was going on in some way, but it was just so jarring. I mean, I couldn't even think about what was happening clearly. You know, it's just surviving.
Yeah, it was like trying to pull off this garage sale that we swore we were going to do as soon as we got here. Took so much time and energy, and then we kind of live in, you know, the middle of nowhere. So then we ended up selling a lot of the stuff on Facebook Marketplace instead, and it's just so much like mental energy in really like so much releasing, you know. It's like releasing all this stuff. Yeah. Had to release my expectations about the photographer, you know, wanting things to go a certain way. And Sonny's broken arm was really scary. I mean, not scary, but like we went to urgent care. They looked at the x-ray. They came back in and they were like, you need to get to the you need to get to the hospital ASAP. They're waiting for you. Just a insane break above the elbow. Just shattered the elbow and the whole upper arm bone was floating. She was an absolute champion in that. Like, we actually didn't think it was broken because of how well she handled it. I do think she was probably in shock.
She was in shock, but yeah, she was such a trooper, man. And it's really hard as a parent. You know, obviously if your kid gets injured, you're trying to keep them calm and not freak out, but you're also internally a little worried. And for me, it was definitely a difficult thing to traverse. But she was such a trooper. And once we found out it was broken, she freaked out a bit more. But it was a whole thing where we had to go to the hospital and like immediately get it fixed, get pins put in, which they had to put her under for that. And that was traumatic.
It was very scary. She's like passed out and they're wheeling her back. It felt like something so much bigger than a broken arm.
And we're not fans of general anesthesia in general, unless you need to do it. Obviously she's a little kid and, needed to go under for this kind of operation, but that was so heavy because I knew it was going to be fine. But yeah, when you're saying goodbye for, you know, just the 20 minutes it's going to take and she's like starting to go under it, your mind just races. Like, is she going to come back? You know?
So watching them wheel her, and it's like late by then. Well, at first they were like, we'll have to keep her overnight because we don't have a surgeon until tomorrow. But then she had like numb fingers, which freaked them out. So they were like, okay, there's like some nerve stuff. The bone might be sitting up against some nerves. So we're going to do it tonight. So it was like late. You know, her mom was like frantically driving up from where she lives. We live like 3 hours away from each other. And yeah, it was super intense. Mark spent the night in the hospital with her, and then her mom came and stayed up here, not with us, but her family lives up here so that we could all be close. And like, then Sonny's out of school for a week, and then we had to take her to get the cast put on 5 days later. And that took us into the week before the wedding. Sonny didn't want to wear a dress for the wedding. She was wearing a suit, and we just got her the suit jacket that was super cute. Mark just like cut the arm off of it. Yeah, so there's just like all this stuff. It was what a fucking whirlwind. I like blanked that part out for a while. So yeah, it's been a lot. So anyway, that Western medicine was fucking amazing. Like, the entire experience was amazing. And the fact that they could just poke some pins into the side of her arm without even cutting her arm open and fix that and stuff, amazing. So I'm not like unilaterally shitting on Western medicine. I'm not one of those. I think there are triage specifically. They're fucking amazing. However, the hyper specialization of Western medicine, and by that I mean like it's not holistic, and by that I mean you got one guy that treats this one specific thing and another guy who treats this other specific thing, and they are frequently not talking to each other. This is cross of planning to the max. Cross of planning says let's all work together and every person take one niche. And what happens there is that people, and this is why I love physical therapists, or my favorite doctors, is because they understand the entire body, right? And so my dad was trying to get a relatively minor heart issue rectified with a doctor, and he had an arrhythmia, which is not the end of the world. And I also hate the bureaucracy because I think a pacemaker would have just done the trick. But, insurance likes to say, well, you have to do these 5 things before you can just get the fucking thing that would fix it. And a year ago, he got what I think is kind of an experimental procedure done. I don't know how much I'm supposed to be talking about this publicly, but a procedure that was supposed to be minor. And it's just that thing, where he came back and he was different and something got messed up while they were in there. And he started to be in incredible pain from the thing they messed up when he was in there. And then you can't get anybody on the phone. And my philosophy is if I can't reach you, if you're not cutting me open. I can't help what happens in an emergency, but I'm not hiring you to cut me open if I can't have access to you specifically. And so he didn't get to see the person who caused this massive injury. Obviously the surgery didn't work. And then it caused this massive injury and he was never the same. And he rapidly aged over the next year. Then, I don't know, I don't want to get in the weeds of it, but yeah, he wasn't sick and he didn't have anything that was super major that we should have been expecting to lose him soon. Now, my zoomed out macro view on death is you go when you're supposed to go. My guides told me in the Christmas vacation of 2019, my dad started to go through a spiritual awakening. He was already pretty spiritual, but massive spiritual awakening. And the aliens told me that this was him completing what he came to do in this lifetime. Up until that point, I thought people die as soon as they do that, because that was kind of what happened in my near-death experience. But my relationship to death, my understanding of death has expanded a lot since then. But he did wake up in this lifetime and, proceeded to go continue a spiritual awakening through the last few years. He was a mental projector, a 5-2 mental projector for the human design nerds. And he got into human design. He loved all that shit. He really bonded with Mark over being a projector. But this was just simply what I've come to understand is that, people who are on a reincarnation cycle, if they complete what they came to complete in this lifetime, tend to just hop out at that point. Some people have a soul contract with someone else in their life. And so they're going to play they're going to be their guide. So they're here for a short time with that person and then they hop out so they can be a guide on the other side. But some people just fuck the body up. The body has to be able to hold the energy. And if you treat the body poorly or, so an irreparable injury or something happens to the body, that's just kind of is what it is, I do think he woke up. I don't get the impression that he has to go reincarnate. I think he woke up and that was kind of the point. I thought he was going to die right after that Christmas break because of the way the aliens, everything felt like closure and part of his awakening was around my childhood and being able to see my childhood through and his parenting and my mom's parenting through these this higher awareness and being oh my God, how did we miss this, And I said everything I had to say to him then because I felt he wasn't going to, what's going on with the throat chakra? He wasn't going to be here much longer. The first time I saw him after the surgery last year was at my sister's wedding. And I think the whole way home, I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this. Like, and this is kind of what happens when people get old, you know, it's like they're great until they're not. Like they just have one thing happen that just kind of starts to break them down and then they can't recover from it. And this is where Western medicine pisses me off, because you got these two doctors not talking to each other, and it's not, I don't ever hear that modality of medicine being like, okay, well, the body needs to recover. So you need to be careful what you're eating. You need to do this kind of exercise. You need to rest, you know, take into consideration that you just had this major thing, and let's hold off on like putting you under for a colonoscopy, or, you know what I mean? Let's not pile things on here. Like I just, it's so mechanical, and it's like so disconnected from nature that it pisses me off. But I am grieving. So I am, you know, it's all the things at the same time. I, on one hand, have a complete acceptance that everything happens exactly as it's supposed to happen. And I'm not someone who really indulges in, you know, should-haves. Things should have gone this way, you know. It played out exactly how it was supposed to play out. But he had to get another procedure in June, and we all went to Delaware for that because I have not had a good feeling about how long my dad's going to be here. Me and Coco and Mark are the only people in the family who were feeling the energy of that. This was a complete and utter shock to everyone else that loved him. And after the procedure in June, something happened where his lung ended up partially deflated. And I have for 6 months been like, that's insane. Fill his lung, like fix his lung. You can't just be, he's already recovering from other stuff. Like, don't leave the lung partially deflated. Like, I'm not a medical professional. I don't think I need to be an expert to know that's too much stress on a heart that just had, you know, surgery. Because by then he had like kind of more of a major heart surgery that they said he was fine. They said he was great. But, you know, it's all like, oh, yeah, well, we'll fix your lung in January. We can't get you until January, which is the bureaucratic part of it. And I was like, Dad, take money out of your fucking home equity or your annuity or something and just go to a doctor that you're paying cash for and get off of this insurance bureaucracy. Fucking go with cash and they'll have an appointment for you next week. Just go find a doctor separate from this hamster wheel and get this shit fucking looked at, you know? And we won't have all the results back for a couple of weeks, but it seems that the stress of the collapsed lung caused the heart to fail that was already struggling, you know, so weird that me and ChatGPT could figure that out, but it's fine. I'm processing. So it happened exactly. It's fine. I might take all that out, but so my dad was amazing, which makes this harder, you know. I'm sure it's complicated when your shitty parent dies. I'll let you know at some point how that is. But let's take that out. But he was just an amazing person. He was just a fucking like an unbelievably impactful, present, engaged, invested, funny, talented, like empathetic, vulnerable man that like is an unfathomable loss to everyone. That
Um, I did like a whole episode just on my dad and the story of my dad. It was kind of all over the place because my brain is like fucking grief makes ADHD. Grief plus perimenopause plus solar storms plus ADHD is like just absolute oatmeal brain. Yeah, so we jumped in a car. We don't even know the person that babysat our house.
Yeah.
It was just like a guy that Coco worked with. It's a friend of Coco's. And we left before he even got here. And trying to get to Delaware, so like 6 hours in theory. And just trying to pack for it. I just was so knocked out of my body, like so dissociated. I ended up with like a pound of baking soda in my suitcase for I like surprisingly remembered like underwear and socks, but then like packed so many things that I was like, oh my God, I was out of my mind. And then just that first week is so brutal because it's like your body, it feels like labor the way that it comes in waves, the way that like contractions do. And so I'd be like, fine. And then, but the fine is like, I forget he's gone, you know? And then it's like, time to remember. And then you just go into this deep, like fucking, God, my brain does not want to absorb this information. Or it's like, you just like can't. You can't just like instantly know that someone's gone. You have to like remember it 1,000 times a day. And that part was, Jesus Christ, so fucking hard. And then my stepmom and him were married for 40 years. I mean, they were just like soulmate in love. And like, I can cry. Thinking about her is still like, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I told everyone, like, if Mark dies in decades later and you guys are all self-sufficient, you better get that trust done because I'm packing my suitcase. Oh, I can't imagine. We then had to come home for a few days in between because, of course, Phoenix was a lead in the play. Of course, this is all happening at the same time. And we get home. I had a couple, like, I felt my dad in the room at one point, and then when everyone was looking at pictures, and then I had something when I was like upstairs just losing my mind. I mean, because my parents' house is just like packed with family, you know? And that side of my family is close and everything. Then I have like my mom and my sister, and that side of the family's not, but it's like my dad's side of the family is very tight knit, you know. Many of them never left Delaware, and
your dad has a big family, lots of brothers,
my dad's
sisters.
one of 7 kids. Yeah. He's the second one to pass.
Which all of them, it's that family is like a tight knit kind of closeness that I've never really experienced. I've never been a part of a family like that. Which just emphasizes like who your dad was too, you know, coming from this kind of group of brothers and sisters, some of them all the same ages, growing up together, and then everybody's so funny and genuine and authentic. It just builds this like family unit that is really magical. But in a situation like this, it's very heavy. You know, the loss is like a big loss that kind of cascades into multiple generations of family members.
Yeah, it was like every time someone came over, we're also just like hilarious. Like everyone in the house or everyone in the family is very funny. Like my dad was very funny. And so some of my best jokes were in between like crying. Like we had to go to the funeral. I have so many thoughts about the American customs around death. Why we immediately go into event planning, I do not understand. Like, let's have a party in a few weeks, you know? So we go to the funeral home. This guy's just like selling us shit, and it's fine. It's his job. But I was like, we have to write the obituary. We're just in this meeting for hours. And at one point, they're just selling us these fucking these thank you cards that there's like, you put a picture of a beach on the front and this poem. And they keep passing me the binder. And I have 2 sisters on this side. And everyone else is taking it kind of seriously. And at this point, I'm just like, we're just buying stuff. Like, I fucking hate capitalism. I hate capitalism. My one sister who still has young kids, because me and Allie have like teenagers, didn't have any support with her young kids because her husband can't afford to take off of work. Like, I fucking hate capitalism. My other sister who works, I think her bereavement pay was like $60 a day. Or something. It's like, or for the whole I don't know. It's something. I hate capitalism so much. So anyways, they're selling us fucking thank you cards, and no offense, everybody has to make a fucking living. But I was over it. And so they were trying to pick the picture for Mark had gone out to get Starbucks, so he missed this. So he was one of 2 people that would have actually gotten this joke, but Coco was there, and it was fine. It was just for her. So they're trying to pick pictures for the front of this thank you card that you have to buy. And they're like, okay, well, a beach. She did love the beach, and my dad did love the beach. But then they're like, do you have like a golf course or something? And I said, do you have anything with Baphomet?
The room is silent.
Coco about spit her water out. And then we just died. And then everyone else was like, what the fuck? Which made it even more my favorite joke.
That's the beautiful thing about your family and like your dad even. Cracking jokes in the most contrasting moments when it's supposed to be serious or sad, or there's always someone there from your side of the family to just like pop that bubble with a really smart on the cuff joke that is so necessary when you're grieving or if you're taking yourself too seriously, you know. And that's what I so enjoyed about being around your family, that in those moments. And I think your dad would have, you know, was laughing at that point. It's like, that's my girl. Like, this is what we do, you know?
Yeah.
And it helps the grieving process. And I think multiple people, Allie, everybody had those moments like throughout the weeks that we were there. Just choice, funny, you know, kind of dark humor moments in such a heavy time.
Yeah.
It's so important. You know, I think
it's very much our family style. My sister, but I remember the Christmas of 2021, we stayed home because I was pregnant and had morning sickness. And then right before, so Phoenix and Lily went. And then right before my dad was going to send Phoenix and Lily back, Phoenix and my niece started their first period together at the same, like within a day of each other. And then we did the ultrasound on the 29th and found out that the baby had passed. And then I almost died in the miscarriage. I almost bled out and spent 2 days in the hospital. And sorry, this is going to be a trauma dumping episode. And then Allie texted me right after I got back from the hospital and said, I guess now I can tell you both kids started their periods. And I said, me too.
jeez.
And like literally almost died from
losing so much blood.
So it's very much our family style. And when my grandfather died, I was 15, and all 7 of my dad and all of his siblings, they're so funny. Just that boomer ball busting, you know, I grew up around just constant roasting, whatever. And they, you know, it was a very tight-knit family. They loved their dad. And so it was the same thing. There were periods of crying and I can't believe this happened, and then straight into jokes. And my grandfather was similarly, I think this is just kind of something that can happen when you don't leave your hometown, you know. I mean, my grandfather wasn't from Delaware, but my family's like blue collar construction, heavy equipment operator family, so they just knew a lot of people. So many people were coming through that house, and they would just get hit. They would come in like kind of over emotional, and then they would just get hit with this wall of just like absolute comedians. And that was such a core memory for me.
The thing I love about it is that it's not your typical like joke ball busting where someone's trying to get attention. It's literally, it's like a trickster thing to me. It's like, here's a dark grieving moment and a bunch of thoughts roll through, and then a bunch of funny thoughts roll through.
Yeah.
And your family's not afraid to like express those funny thoughts. And that's what it's just like, oh, there's this too, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh my God, my brain, who's not like naturally fun. I mean, I guess I can't be funny, but like my brain wasn't even thinking that. And then when you pointed that out, I see the line of thought and like, oh, I wouldn't have even gone there to say that, but you said it, and it's so good. Like, it's just, I'm just trying to express that it's not like some comedians, it's kind of an ego stroke thing, and they're very insecure. And so that's how they get recognized, and they need that attention. The way your dad would drop jokes at certain points was so matter of fact. Like, he thought it was funny too, but he's just kind of like, well, there's this.
Yeah.
And that's why I love comedy, because it makes you think differently. You immediately are not taking yourself seriously because of the way and the time that this was just dropped. And so quick-witted your dad was. Like, and something would happen and boom, here's the funny bit of it. And it would make him chuckle sometimes too, but I just love that. Like, again, I've never seen that. I can understand where you get all of your humor from, and it is a specific flavor of humor. It's like kind of dark, and it's real, it's not gimmicky. And it's so loud in your family, and it's like really great to be around, especially when something like this is happening.
Yeah.
Something I just think is interesting to talk about, and you may have talked about it on the podcast, we could get into a little bit of the like kind of metaphysical stuff that happened around this, but
Can we go to the bathroom first?
Yeah. It's a metaphysical pee break.
You were saying something about metaphysical.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting, and probably a lot of people are curious about this idea of death in general. I think a lot of what we talk about, and I mean, you yourself experiencing a near-death experience, but a lot of stuff we talk about, consciousness, spirituality, it kind of revolves around this, this idea of death, this door. And a lot of the revelation is like, oh, it's not, death isn't real. It's not a loss, in some forms. And you can get really comfortable with that idea mentally. And, even talking to dead relatives or spirits and stuff, you can kind of really internally feel like, oh, this is just a door into a different experience. It's not what culture has kind of programmed us to believe, that it's this ultimate end. But it also is an end of a certain experience, of a physical reality. And so the idea of grief can sometimes become blurry when you can know that when you lose someone, that they're not really gone. You can connect to them in a different way. And, I lost my dad 9 years ago, I can't remember, but the exact time.
12 years
little
ago.
Clock mouse.
Clock mouse.
But, and I did I did connect to him in a different way, like once he passed. And it's a very different death. I had a complicated relationship with him, but I very much like know that to be real, like that I connected to him in a different way, felt closer to him after he died. And my grieving of that, again, was like very different because the connection was not as strong as you had with your dad. And so for the most part, it was a relief to us because he was sick for a long time, and kind of a lot of us had to orbit around him to keep him alive. And he wasn't the greatest person through all of that. So a lot of us, it was a relief. It was sad and there was some grief, but I quickly went into a spiritual awakening after that, which may have been tied to it, to be honest. But I think what is interesting is that there is this profound beauty in grief that is very weird. It's so emotionally heavy, and there is this part of us, no matter how much we know death isn't true, when it happens to somebody close, it's very difficult not to get like swallowed by the grief. But then you can have these moments of clarity mentally that you're like, well, no, but he's still here in a different form. And where is he? Can I connect? You know, in that kind of makes the grief not as heavy for a moment, because it feels like, well, maybe I don't need to grieve him if he's still here. But the beauty in letting yourself like really fall into that emotion, it's just so radical, like the way that like you can mentally understand energy and consciousness that never dies and we're infinite, but at the same time, like there is a closing of a scene that like will never happen the same way again. And so the beauty of being a human is being able to feel that loss and like accept it and process that in all the ways of, you know, thinking of regrets. I wish I would have done this while I was still here. But then also being like, it was so beautiful though while I was here. I'm so thankful for all these moments. And now I won't have those anymore. Oh, but maybe I can have them in a different way because I can connect in a different form. So I think there's a lot of temptation for people to kind of bypass that grief through a mental aspect of understanding, well, we're all connected, we're all one, we never die. And to me, it is a like short stepping of the magic of being human, of being emotional and like feeling those tough feelings.
Yeah.
And I think there were some comments throughout your Instagram posts and stuff of some people saying that, kind of being like, you know, of all people, Jesse, you should know he's not gone. And it's like, yeah, we know that. And of all people, you know that. But also there's this potential of like moving into the emotion that is really heavy and hard, that is really beautiful too. Like once you move through it. And so many times at that house when we were all in the house together, just the family, and telling stories and watching old videos, it's heavy, but there's like a connection that happens. There's like a bonding that occurs in that grief that then once you move through it, like expands the sensitivity and the awareness of like being human. It is so beautiful, but so hard at the same time. And I think it's just interesting. You probably talked about it on the other podcast, but how you're experiencing that, you know, that I knew this was going to be really heavy for you. Like when we've talked about it in the past, like as a potential, and getting to know your dad. I mean, it was like really heavy for me, surprisingly enough, because he had kind of become a dad.
Oh.
Damn it, Tom. Yeah, he had definitely become like a dad that I didn't have. But I don't think I really knew that until this happened and like he was gone. And I'm so thankful for that. And it was like so beautiful. And I knew at the same time that I was like, he's not gone. Multiple times in that house, I like felt him doing things like through Coco, through a couple times through me. And that was like really comforting. But at the same time, I'm like, the physical connection is like no longer there, and how special that was. And I'm thankful that I was like really present during that. You know, I had woken up enough that I knew there was something special to experience that like wasn't going to be forever, you know. But I just think it's interesting to watch you go through it and all that you know and how stable you are consciously, that you were still a wreck. Like, and yeah, it's like inspiring to watch you do that and know at the same time that there's like a connection. And the thing you said at his memorial, which I know was like really hard for you. You didn't have the words to like speak so quick, and you weren't going to. But then, you know, this thing you said was very short and very sweet and very your dad is what he would have wanted you to say to a bunch of people that might not be on the same level. And it was something to the likes of, that existence, there's a deal here, and that to experience love and all the beauty of life, being represented by like the top of a tree, its leaves and branches, that the deal is you have to experience the harder part, which is the roots underneath, the darkness, the grief, the heavy emotion, and the acceptance that there is a loss happening. Yes, there's a connection on a different level, but there's also this loss. And if you bypass it by going, well, I'm still connected, then you've missed half of it. And the deal is being a human is like, there's non-permanence. There's this beauty of like a individual present moment being one of a kind and never replicating again. And when we're bypassing it and not feeling that, we're missing half of the experience. And that's like so fucking special when you actually go into the grief and realize that it just makes you want to come back to reality and be extremely present in every moment, because you know it's all fleeting. And that's so beautiful. Like that's the kind of goes to this macro idea that we invented death. We invented this whole experience because that's what we want, is this like beautiful experience that can't be had when we know it's infinite and forever. And so that's like the gift of it, of grief and emotion. But it's so hard when you're like having to face it and having to believe for a moment that it's all over, you know? And so I just, I bring that up because I think it's really interesting to watch you do that and hold both. And when we got back to the house for that like intermission, we were there for a couple days, came back for a couple days, and then went back. It was electric. Like when we came back, because there was like a definite connection to him that you experienced and I experienced myself. That is so cool and so confirming of all of these like mental ideas and these, it's all connected still, but the grief is still there, you know? And then we went back and it was even heavier, like more grief and more processing, while simultaneously holding, like he's standing in the room with us, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I think this is a part that everybody has to experience. Like we're going to lose loved ones, and we ourselves are going to go through that. But there's no sense in bypassing it. It's like it is so beautiful but so heavy. And I feel like that's what a lot of these timeline shifts were. It was kind of just bumps in the road. And like I said, I was like, at one point I was trying to resist it and be like, can we get back to the thing where we're doing podcasts and talking conscious and it's light and fun and funny. And all of this is shifting into, eventually like going through grief and emotion, dark parts of life expand into a like real blossoming and expansion of what it means to be alive. And that's what's so beautiful about death in general. But it is just such a paradox. Like it's beautifully treacherous,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the higher in consciousness we go, the more complex and paradoxical our experience is supposed to get, right? And so to raise in consciousness is to lose the ability to be able to put things in only one box. And I have had loss before, but I have object permanence issues. And so many of the losses I suffered before, it was like I had moved across the country or we weren't talking as often. And so my brain never was able to grieve fully because I can't process that the person's actually gone, And so I have always said that it was like the members of my household and my dad were going to be like, well, hopefully I'd never lose the members of my household. Hopefully I'm first, but it would have to be someone out of my daily life. I guess anyone from that side of the family, but I was extremely close to my dad. And I don't remember what the fuck I was saying, but I think in oversimplified spirituality and in consciousness in general, there is a real conflation between narratives and feelings. And I talk into microphones a lot about how to neutralize narratives, which often parade as feelings. Feelings flow through you like a river and they serve a purpose. They are very important for processing the experience that you're having. I would say they are the point of the experience you are having, but they are transient and you're not obligated to experience them quickly. But if you have like a truly open channel for your emotions to do their thing, which I didn't for most of my life, then it's relatively, it's a process and it comes and it goes, and the process is going to be different for different people. I'm a very fast processor, so I move through states very fast. A narrative is a story you are telling yourself, and narratives can get you stuck in a state of resistance or a state of denial. And so this is where you see people get really locked in, did they know how I felt about them? I should have done something different. This shouldn't have happened or whatever. So I can simultaneously be annoyed with Western medicine and also, and how this was handled, and also know that like it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't supposed to happen. Where some people get stuck, and I think specifically when you're looking at like people that were like the ideas of like too soon or too young or before their time. Like, I don't believe in these things. These are mental traps that people get trapped in a state of bargaining with the reality that is. That's all mental shit. None of that is grieving. Like, as far as I mean, it's this phase of grief, right? But like, none of that is like a mandatory aspect of grief. a lot of that is because our culture is woefully unprepared for death in a constant, our entire culture is built around a fear of death, which is odd because it's the one guarantee in life, you know? And so there are a lot of mental traps around death that you'll get stuck at someone else's death and never progress again as a human. I mean, I know a ton of people who have not recovered from losing a loved one. And so I have shared, like, I have anxieties around losing people around me. I feel like I'm overly aware of death for someone who actually hasn't had it happen around me a lot. And so I have to be in a perpetual state of like opening my hand that if you left, I would, you know, I would accept that that's what your soul wanted to do. If I lost a kid, I would accept. Like, I don't know how everyone else gets to just live their life without constantly processing the potential death of everyone. But none of those are feelings. Those are thoughts, you know? And so a lot of what I talk about is when I talk about quote unquote hacking reality, I'm really talking about hacking your own mental bullshit, you know, your own conditioning, your own, you know, programming and fear shit. None of that is meant to help us avoid feelings, but I understand why people use it that way, because before I had an emotional awakening, you know, like, I don't know, 8 years ago now, I was like that too. And the reason I was like that, and I think most of us are like that, is because emotions were super shamed in this culture. And because everyone was over-identified with the mental space. And we, many of us are hypersensitive people. We're hypersensitive kids being told by adults that's not a reason to cry. And so like, I am so grateful that I did not experience this loss until now, when I'm able to do both, you know, because I absolutely would have been the guy being like, but they're still there. You know, it's like, people are already saying that to me, and it's very sweet. And it's like, I will get into the story, I'm sure, of like communicating with my dad. Like, I've already communicated with him. We've already talked to 3 fucking mediums. Like, I got it. He feels he's here right now, but that it's still a loss. And it is just a changing of form. And I do agree with that. And these are things that, like, I'm so grateful that I know, because they are bringing me comfort and they are keeping me out of like the mental traps of loss. But the feelings, you know, I'll see a video of when my kids were tiny and cry, because they're still physically, the 15 and 12-year-old versions of them physically still exist, but like, I never get that toddler phase back. That's a loss. You know, I can tell myself that like they're still here, but you know, the truth about being a parent is like, you only get a few years with every version, you know, with toddlers, with little kids, whatever. And most of the time you're just trying to fucking survive it.
Yeah.
And then they're adults and they're off living their own life. And that portion of life where you got to be with them and be parenting them was actually very short. I can say, as someone with a 31-year-old and like another kid who's now about to be an adult, I feel like that's all loss. It's a change of form, you know? And so, but it's beautiful and it's devastating. And that is what I think why grief is meant to crack us open and soften us if you don't mentally get stuck in a belief that it shouldn't have happened. And I just don't subscribe in that. And I wouldn't suddenly subscribe to that if I lost a child, you know? I just don't believe that. I also don't believe that every person is going to live to be 80. You're here till you're here. And I know that when we pass, you're suddenly kind of like, I mean, not every soul, because if you're tethered, you're super attached to the physical, you're going to get kind of stuck, you know, if you're depending on the frequency you were at is going to kind of determine where you go. But in the grand scheme of things, we're infinite. And in the grand scheme of things, the reason we felt so connected when we first met is because this ain't our first rodeo together. This is definitely not my first time with my dad, you know, and we will be together again in a different form. But that does not make it less sad that I never get to watch him play the guitar and sing again. You know what I mean? That I never get to get roasted by him again in a physical form and hear the sound of his voice, and that an era has ended. You know, like it hit me the other day that, like, you know, I'm a girl without a dad. And you know, my struggles are with my other parent, you know, and so I shared this on another podcast, but like my dad was the most vulnerable, emotionally intelligent man maybe on the planet. And I'm almost 50. And so I've been around that as a man, you know, my whole life. And so that's why I've pissed people off on this podcast where I don't immediately equate men with this other expression of men, because like the primary man in my life was just, you just never saw him shy away from emotions. You know, he was actually would like lean in to emotions, you know. He was much more emotionally, I picked up my mom's lack of vulnerability, you know, because I spent most of my childhood with my mom, unfortunately. And so my childhood, you know, wasn't what it would have been if I would have stayed with my dad. But I keep starting things and then losing them. But there's been a lot of that lately. Yeah, I mean, thank you for saying that. That's very sweet. And I feel it's interesting once you've been here. Like now I feel like I finally know what to say. I never know what to say when people lose people. You know, I mean, my instincts have always been like to kind of give them space early on and then just offer to be there if they need. And I think that that's kind of accurate. I noticed that when people ask me about my dad or thanked me for sharing my dad, because I have been like live journaling this on social media, that's meant a lot. I did get a couple kind of condescending, like, you know better. And it's like, it's been 2 weeks. And I did really, like, after 2 weeks, the waves got much further apart. And the paradigm shift, I would say, was the hardest part. The, like, moving into the reality where he's gone was the hardest part. And I think I've come to acceptance already. And so I think it varies, you know. I think when it's a parent, and I'm just like someone who thinks about death all the time, and so like, and I was braced after he started to change. Like I was apparently the only one in my family who was braced, so it was shocking but not surprising, you know. And the timing was kind of beautiful. He stayed for the wedding. I definitely at the wedding when I hugged him, the last time I got to hug him. We like hugged chest to chest and I could feel the pain in his body. And so I knew he was in more pain than he was even letting on. Anyway, I feel like this is 5 hours long, but so we stayed there for 5 days, I think, originally. Everything's such a blur. I just know we're going to forget everything. That's part of the reason I wanted to get on a podcast, because I'm like, we're all so much more dissociated than you could imagine. I think he passed on a Wednesday or Thursday. We went to Delaware. We stayed there for 4 or 5 days. And then we came back on a Sunday so that Phoenix could get a few days of rehearsal in. And we could I had all these fucking lofty fantasies about working. I literally grabbed my cards to go to Delaware the first time because I thought I was going to do an energy update. Like I was clearly in shock initially. I had no idea how far knocked out of your body this experience would make me. Anyway, so we came back for a few days, and when there was one incident where I was crying on the bathroom floor. Sorry, this is like, I cannot do anything linear right now. So the story's all over the place, but I was crying on the bathroom floor, just really fucking in it. And then the crying started to calm down. I was also just like so frustrated with the fact that we had to plan a funeral and shit. I just don't, let the record state my family is forbidden from having a funeral until I've been gone for at least 3 months. Should I pass? So I then was like just kind of laying on the floor and then could feel my dad's presence being very concerned with what was happening in the living room, the conversation that was happening in the living room. And I came out of the bathroom after a little bit, and I don't want to tell anyone else's story, but I guess what was happening was one of my siblings having grief. Like everyone's going through family pictures, and, you know, it's crazy the childhood trauma that came up in this. Like I was the only child of my two parents, and then my parents moved 3,000 miles away from each other. My mom moved to Portland and my dad stayed in Delaware. My mom left when I was 2 and went to Portland. My dad single parented me until I was 5.5. And then I went to live with my mom after that. And then I just like would spend the school year with my mom and then the summer with my dad. And horrible things were happening at my mom's house. And I didn't tell my dad because I thought that he sent me there because he didn't want me. So I didn't want to burden him with the abuse. And so he then married my stepmom, who's been around since for as long as I can remember. And she is a meaningful mother figure to me. And, but then they got married and they had my 2 sisters, my half sisters, and my mom got married to my stepdad, who I was also very close to. He's passed, and they had a sister. And so then a daughter. So I have 3 sisters. They're all half sisters. And I have this, like, I was the in-between kid. And a lot of life happens in 9 months. And so every time I would come back from the summer, it's like like so much change would have happened or whatever. And so I never really felt, and I like believed, subconsciously mostly, but like I believed that I wasn't wanted at my dad's house. And by the time I got old enough to understand that that wasn't the case, I came to live there when I was 12, but the damage was done. I was traumatized and acting out and whatever. And then, and my dad tried to just like ground me into acting less dysfunctional. And, I struggled with school because of the ADHD, and they just didn't I got diagnosed with it back then, but they just didn't fucking know how to deal with it. So even my teachers were like, she's not living up to her potential. They didn't quite understand like ADHD people can't pay attention to shit they don't give a fuck about. So I lived there till I was like 15, and then I left again because my mom would let me get high. So I was like, I can deal with the abuse if I'm stoned. Anyway, I have all these wounds around like not being a part of that family, where that's the family I feel very connected to. I have a very rough relationship with my mom, and I didn't really feel connected there fully either. I felt more connected to my stepdad than her. But so we're watching home movies, and there's all this wounding coming up around all the movies I'm not in, and all the pictures I'm not in and stuff. And it's, your daughter is me in our family dynamic. And so I know I have those wounds, and I'm very vigilant that we don't do things without her and that she's not out of family pictures or whatever. But I wanted to act out. I wanted to lash out. It was like crazy, all this stuff coming up. So my sister was having a similar experience with her wounding, right? It's just, it was crazy. Everyone's wound was coming up. And I felt my dad's concern in the house about that. So then Coco is just kind of like going around the house and going through things and ends up finding this letter from my dad to that sister. And Coco was like, I feel like Pup is showing me where, because, you know, it's like a boomer house. So there's just boxes of shit everywhere, right? And so Coco was like, I feel like Pup showing me where things are to give to people. And it happened like multiple times. And there was like, you know, like hurt feelings because there was no pictures of dad and a sibling. And then Coco finds the pictures, you know, it was beautiful. And then one morning I woke up, this was the fucking worst, was like waking up in the morning. And then the first thing to smack you in the face is he's gone. And so one morning I like opened my eyes and then I felt like I just got punched in the chest with he's gone. It like took my breath away and I rolled over and started crying and he was right there. And he was like, I'm not going, I'm right here. You know, and it was like, a lot of the movies about this stuff are exactly what it is, you know? And so the movie Ghost is extremely accurate for what it's like for people on the other side, in my experience, including if they can tell that you can hear them, your house will fill up with various people trying to get you to pass on messages. And I just said in that moment, I'm not ready for that yet. Like there was no mental doubt that I was going to be able to talk to my dad, but I don't know. There was something about connecting with him on the other side that felt like it was going to just take away from the grief I was experiencing. And then it was just too much. Like, it's just, we're all packed in this house. It's overstimulating. My dad was very popular. So there's so many people at the house and there's food and and so when we left and drove home and we walked into our own empty house, was when dad became like super loud and kind of followed me from room to room for a couple of minutes. And then I finally stopped in the sunroom and said, okay, you know, and he was like, I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. Like the body was bad. It feels amazing to be out of that body. And we had gotten an autopsy on my dad, and we hadn't gotten the preliminary results back yet, but his description was accurate. It was very bad. The doctors didn't catch it, but it was very bad. And then I think the biggest thing like will miss about my dad is just like the guide. He's just like the quintessential projector. And I've come to a place of like, you know, self-sufficiency in the area of needing advice at this point in my life. But he still was like, we had him here to help with the bathroom. We had him here to help with the bamboo. We had him here to help with it. Like, you know what I mean? He just is a wealth of knowledge. And he said that I will be able to still guide you with those things through inspiration. So you can just ask me questions and then I can like guide you. And I could just feel him like playing with synchronicity and just being like, fuck, this is fucking cool, you know? And you had gotten a similar feeling of him, like, how did you say it? Using his engineering brain to figure out how to communicate.
Yeah. And the multiple times that I worked with him on little projects, I could always tell that he was accessing an experienced knowledge. Like he had done a lot of things in his life, whether that's like building his own bathrooms, building walls. You know, he was a constructional engineer, you know, so it's like a lot of talents come with that. But then he was also in the moment just problem solving and hacking things, and was really good at that. It's kind of the same thing I do. I really enjoy like a problem comes up and having to figure it out just with intuition and some experiential based stuff. And so, but even in his like older age, he was just really good at thinking outside the box and trying to solve something. And so when I was just connecting with him at different points throughout this process, it was very clear to me that like he was still doing that. And because he had woken up enough and was very into these subtler parts of reality, it was just very clear to me that like he was going to figure out that he hadn't like left, like gone on to, you know, into the light or into a different body. He was hanging around because the interest of, oh, I can still guide from here. In fact, I can probably guide better from here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to figure out how to whatever it is, you know, like I don't know what the physics are like in this other realm, but like it seems to be very clear that like he can, if you're on that other space, like you can see everything. Time's different, so you can see expanded time, what's going to potentially happen, and how to nudge someone into a place that they would rather be without intervening, you know, and all of the ways of, yeah, like, you know, a penny is important to this person, so I need to get a penny somehow in their path at a certain point to communicate, and they will see it, they will understand the message, you know. And so it was very clear that he was going to figure that out pretty quickly. And I even, like, the thing that happened to me before that was clear, because it happened at the house a couple times. Like I picked up a guitar string, the room that we were staying in, and I knew that it was his guitar string, and I was just playing with it kind of nervously while everything was going on, just like doodling with it like I do with anything. And it started turning into a flower just while I was playing with it. I was like, oh, interesting. It's like a flower. And then I kind of finished it, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with this? Maybe I should keep it. This is like a fun thing to have of Tom's. But then it was very clear. It was like, no, you have to give that to Kiki. Like put it in a plant thing. And it's just a dumb thing, but it'll sit there and it'll always remind her of me, you know? And so then I just waited for the time and gave it to Kiki. And was like, hey, I don't know why I made this, but I found this guitar thing and here, you know, and she was very touched by it. And then I noticed the Coco thing happening, and I was like, she's being moved by him for sure, because the timing was crazy multiple times. It was just like so perfect. And I'm also processing the grief, but also have that mental thing where I'm like, but you're still here. Like, where are you? Can you, I just, you know, send me a message or something that you're here. And so there were multiple times that like were just personal to me that was like confirmed, but they were very subtle. And I think a part of me was wanting him to show up like fully for everybody to see, so everybody would be like, oh, okay, wow, consciousness is a real thing and he's not it. And I knew that wasn't like, that's not how it works. But as we were driving home and we were getting close to the house, I was thinking about that, and I was like kind of talking to him like, you know, how is this going to work? Like, when are you going to come online and like have it be like very clear inspiration? Which for me, I personally already had that confirmation, but I guess I was just like wanting something significant to happen. And then pretty clearly, I don't usually hear voices, but then pretty clearly his voice in my head was, oh, wait till you get to your house, buddy. And it was just like a funny thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe that'll happen. And then I kind of forgot about it. A half hour later, we got home. And then I walk into the house like expecting to see some crazy synchronicity or like him standing there or something. Kind of walked around the house and like nothing significant had happened. But then that's when I caught you noodling through the house, like walking around like kind of manic. And then that was the first time that you started to talk to me about like, okay, so he's been here the whole time in the house. He was talking to me. I couldn't deal with it. It was annoying and all that. And then I was like, whoa,
I didn't
what's
say
happening?
you were annoying, Dad.
Yeah, but you know, you just weren't ready. And so then you started unpacking like that you had been talking and feeling him and everything. And then started telling me stuff that had happened to you. And then it was confirming for me, okay, I was experiencing that too. And, you know, then, all the syncs happened with you in that medium.
It was so crazy. Okay, so my family is very open to this stuff. I would say one sister's been one sister started going through a spiritual awakening within a few months of my dad passing, which is interesting. And my stepmom's always been kind of woo, and so my family's very open, like that. This side of the family is very open to all that stuff, and so my one sister was already trying to book a medium like a couple days in, and I was like, I'm pretty sure we're supposed to wait, you know. And so I had messaged Karen Rontowski, and she was like, there's a woman whose course I took. She's the best as far as I'm concerned. For this, you know, whatever, I'll reach out to her. So she reached out to her and said, my friend's dad just passed and blah, blah, blah. They talked and she said, yeah, we'd like to wait until the dust settles a little bit, till there's some acceptance. You're going to get more out of it. And then she said, okay, well, and she said, I'm not really taking clients, but you can have her email me. And she goes, okay, her name's Jessa Reed. And then the medium knew who I was because she listened to old podcasts of mine. And so she was like, oh, I actually saw a TikTok of her. Oh, and then also I had just literally the day he passed committed that I was just going to post a TikTok a day, post a reel a day, and just talk about whatever's on my mind. And so I had just done that for the first time. My first reel was up. And so she had seen that. She follows me on Instagram.
And that was one that your dad had actually reposted or something.
I found
right?
It was Kiki, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so also my stepmom's name is Kathy, but we call her Kiki because it's an inside joke. So Kiki and Coco, we got these nicknames in the house, in the family. But Kiki and my dad, I think we might have told the story on here. Kiki did that stripper class or pole dancing class in Vegas, and then we made it her grandma name. Anyway, there's so many synchronicities. I feel like I'm not telling a good storyteller today, but she had seen my reel and the word mediumship popped up when she saw that. And so she took that to be a sync that I should go ahead and reach out or something. She said, I think I knew this call was coming, so tell Jessa she can reach out. So we get home, I get chased around the house by my dad. I finally sit down and let him talk, and I get a series of messages from him. This starts in the sunroom of our house, and then I sit down on the couch.
And this energy, like, to explain, it's electric. It's like psychedelic. Like
the whole house.
The whole house. And that's what I'm saying. Like when he was like, wait till you get home. Once we moved into that, the house was spaceshipping. I was like, felt like I was tripping.
Yeah.
And I knew right away, I was like, oh, you motherfucker. Okay, so there's something significant happening right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to be open and like watch it. But it was like the energy was wild.
It was like a vortex of energy in the house. And everything had only been like sad for 5 days. Or I don't know how many days it was. But so he gives me a series of messages, and one was to tell my family that he was a guide and he was going to stay and he wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't going to like cross over or whatever. He was going to stay here for the interim. And I can now, like, conversations I was having in my head on the drive here, I can now connect to like him probably trying to plant these thoughts or whatever.
Which, by the way, my daughter said that before we even started the whole thing. Just a side note.
Oh, that is right. When we told her after this. But yeah, she did end up saying exactly that.
It was on the way back. Yeah.
Yeah.
She just said, I think Pop-Up she was like, I know some people don't believe this, but I think when you die, some people choose another body and some people hang around as ghosts, and Pop-Up's going to stay as a ghost. It was the cutest thing. She might have picked that up from me somewhere, but it was pretty accurate, and she was like so authentic in saying it.
And I did think that some people's like purpose in incarnating is to like create a relationship with someone so that they can be an effective guide. Like a lot of people's awakenings have started that way, and this specific medium was her. That was her story. I should actually ask. I'm like omitting people's names. I don't know why, but I should actually ask her to come do a podcast.
Yeah.
So this is so crazy. So he wants me to tell my family that he is going to stay as a guide and that he's not gone and that he's been here for the whole thing. And that like, trust me, bro, the body was bad and I'm glad to be out of the body. Everything's okay, whatever. And then wants me to give my stepmom a message of something that he said to her with a couple nights ago, and that he was pretty sure she heard him. Now I don't talk to my family about this stuff a lot. I talk to my dad a lot about it, which is why I think he knew he could communicate with me. And my family knows I do something spiritual. I mean, they know I'm into this stuff, but it just isn't like, we just don't like discuss it. I don't know that they know really specifically what I do for a living. They're not terribly interested in me as that, you know? And I tend to not, I'm just not the type of person to be like, yo, dad told me this, because I'm much more conscious of like all the things that are going to come with that. My family thinking, well, then why didn't he talk to me? My family thinking like, oh, Jessa, you know, even though my family's very cool, like I just wouldn't say that. And I am just, in the times where someone on the other side has been like, can you pass on this message to me? You have to like push me kicking and screaming to deliver that message, because what if it's not true, right? So I was not going to pass that on. So then I go in and kind of nervously tell Mark, which is stupid because Mark's super into this, but like nervously tell Mark, like, okay, well, here's, now that we're here, like, you know, my dad is yapping, and was such a clear channel for having just passed, you know, and all the things that he said. And then Mark was like, oh my God, that's what he said to me in the car, like, wait till you get home. And, you know, and then we're just like pulled into that kind of manic energy when something super spiritual is happening, right? And this is, you know, a couple days after Halloween, which is, you know,
It's open.
thin veil, right? And so I said to my dad, if I'm going to ask that medium if the reason she heard mediumship, because I'm also like, I'm emotionally attached. And so I wouldn't ordinarily doubt this. And every time I tried to say, what if I just want this to be true? I like immediately was getting like, no, you literally talk to non-physical beings all the time. So that channel's very open for me, which is why I think he came through to me, obviously. So clear is because I know how to listen. But you know, it's like I'm emotionally attached and I want it to be true. Like I won't read my own tarot cards when I'm emotionally attached because I feel like I'm just picking up on my own energy. So I was just having all this kind of self-doubt. So I said, I'm going to email Dana, the medium, and ask her if she thinks it's possible that the reason she heard mediumship when she saw me is because I was going to get these messages. It's not the first time. If you listen back in the soberish days, like I had a friend, like old friend that I was still Facebook friends with, lost a child suddenly at 4. And that child came to me to give her mom a series of messages. So it's like, I've talked to dead people before, but I still was like, I want this to be true. And I like know all these things about him. So it's harder to believe. This is so crazy. So then I text Karen and I'm like, do you think, like, I just like my dad is yapping right now. Do you think that's like the reason she saw heard mediumship was like a confirmation for me that this was real? And then every time I said that, like my guys were like, it's real, dumbass. It's like, what? And so I knew it was real, but so then Karen got kind of fired up and pulled into the kind of manic energy. And then she was like, oh, maybe, you know, here, you should email her. Let me get her contact info. And then she got me the email address. I'm typing out the email to Dana and I get a text from Karen that says she's live on Facebook or on TikTok right now. I click on the live and I shit you not. By the way, all I'm asking for is a confirmation that this is my dad, really. I opened the live and I started screen recording it, but I didn't catch the first couple seconds. The very first word she said is, my experience with mediumship started when my dad died and started communicating with me. And after a long time of staying in a complete like contact relationship with him, I realized that I could also speak with other whatever. And so I was like, oh my God. So I commented in the live, holy shit, I'm literally emailing you right now to ask if this is my dad talking. She sees it. She is like, oh my God, Jessa, I'm sending you so much love right now. Send me the email. So I sent her the email. She writes back and just affirms that this is, this is very common for people. It's also very common for people who already kind of channel regularly anyway. And she's like, yes, you can believe your experience. And so I'm like, okay, I'll take that as the, so I call my family, I show them the screen recording of like what she was doing. Like everyone gets all excited and then everyone's able to trust all these magical experiences they've all been privately having and keeping to themselves. And then I don't tell my stepmom the thing. And then Mark and I are just kind of like excited and talking. And then my dad is like, tell Kiki. And so I was like, oh my fucking God. And so then I said, I just want to reiterate that dad said he is talking to everyone. And the only reason that like it's loud and clear for me right now is because I know how to listen. And he wanted me to tell Kiki that he said something to her and he was pretty sure she heard him. And then no one writes back, of course. But then I get confirmation from Coco later that it was like she had that experience and was having a hard time trusting it. And this changed the tone of the grieving for me until I got back to Delaware, but for everyone else probably for 24 hours. And then they kind of slipped back into this fear that maybe it wasn't true or whatever. He was so loud that night and then was like gone after that. And I don't think that like time and space exists the same. So I think he was obviously there, but like, I don't think that means he can't be here. But the more I've come to understand this now that I have like such a close connection, it's kind of an energy thing. So it took so much energy to come in that loud that night. And he's so new at this that like, it was almost like he was exhausted after that,
Because he was putting energy into the whole house.
I mean, the whole house was like swirling.
I felt exhausted after it too.
Yeah, I passed. That was the first night I slept. I passed the fuck out. Like all the sleep before that was like weird twilight sleep. So that was like, there was never a doubt in my mind that he was here and I was going to be close to him or whatever. It was almost like I didn't want to do that yet. But, I mean, I guess the next couple of days were heavy. It was like trying to fucking find an outfit to wear to your dad's funeral is insane. It's just a fucking insane, it's just paradigm shift. We picked Mark's daughter up, which was part of the reason the memorial was the following weekend, so she could be with us. And we went back to Delaware. And when we got back to Delaware, this is so crazy. So when I guess we were still here when my sister was like, oh my God, this local medium that I've been that I booked us an appointment with for June because that was her next availability. I just asked my friend to go with me to like one of her like public things. And my friend said, I actually just canceled my appointment. And so she had an appointment with her for the day after my dad's birthday, which was 2 days after my dad's memorial. And so my sister booked that. And then I was like, I think you're not supposed to do it that early. But I realized they didn't know that the medium had explained that to me. So then we're sitting in the house. It must be like a couple days before the memorial. And Pete, blue collar spiritualist, who we're friends with, is somewhere. He's like in the comments somewhere. I see one of his posts and I'm like, oh my God, I have a friend who's a fucking medium. I'm sure I have several friends who are mediums, but you kind of draw a blank in this. But I was like, I should reach out to Pete. So I call Pete, and my reason for calling Pete is literally to be like, I don't want my sister to spend money on this thing where I don't think you're supposed to do it yet. I think you're supposed to wait. And so then he said, I don't have a like cut and, like a hard line boundary of how long it's supposed to be, but you got a couple things going on. You've got how attached you are and the state that you're in. And then also they're getting settled over there. And everything's also going through my filter. And so it is just an easier experience when the dust has settled, so probably not 2 days after the memorial or whatever. But then also if you're saying he was awake, like people who are awake when they passed are much easier, like it's much easier for them to communicate. People who are awake now are going to have a much healthier relationship with it, so that it might be able to or whatever. And so then I said, because I had a question about when he passed, and because it was very sudden, and I just had the one question that I wanted to ask, but I wasn't going to be able to be there for the thing that my family was going to. And so I said, well, I know we're friends and sometimes I don't like to read for friends. So I'm just curious if I had a question in the future, like, would you be comfortable doing that for me? I feel like I can just ask him myself, but I would like to have this confirmation. And he said, well, can I be honest? And I said, yeah. And he said, I saw the posts, like I saw a post of you talking about it. And, he connected to me right then. And I told him, if you want me to give her a message for you, like have her reach out to me. So it's interesting that you're reaching out to me now. And, so right then, and I'm just kind of like in the living room. So I just like put my phone on speaker and, the family that was there kind of gathered around and we got a couple messages. It was really interesting. Everyone he talked about were the people who just happened to be in the room. Like Phoenix happened to be in the room. So he kind of zeroed in on Phoenix, but like Coco wasn't there. I didn't like tell Pete who was in the room. And, yeah, there's so many like supernatural things about this. I want to talk about the bat, but I'm not ready to talk about the bat yet. But there were several supernatural things that I just still feel kind of personal to my family. I'm not ready to share, but maybe in a few months.
But many messages that were like synchronistically personal to people that were in the room. I walked out of the room at one point to take care of a kid and then came back. And right when I came in, he was like, oh, and now Mark's coming up for some reason, blah, blah, blah. Like there was a lot of that I think for the family in general was just enough like woo-woo confirmation that there was like communication happening, and it was fuzzy in some ways, but understandably,
perfectly described the sensation that Dad had when he passed, which absolutely aligned with what it looks like he died of. And not that, okay, so for me, this stuff's not a parlor trick. And the parlor trick aspect of these things drives me kind of crazy. So it's like mediums will tell you a couple evidence things at the beginning just so you know who you're connected to. But the temptation is to take every single thing that the person said and take it as it is real.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Which I don't look at things that way, but I do still go like, holy fuck, about every synchronicity. But the things that he was communicating, it's interesting, and it being so early, it's like my dad's having to learn sign language or like a completely different language. He's having to learn how to communicate through charades depending on the medium, right?
Yeah.
I have clairaudience, so I hear language from the other side, but I also see pictures sometimes, but it seems like a lot of mediums get messages through like pictures and body sensations, right? But it's like my dad is having to learn how to communicate what is relevant. And that's been really kind of interesting to observe with all of these. And so he was cracking jokes like immediately, which is very my dad. Everyone else isn't quite jokey yet, but you can tell my dad's like on the other side, already hilarious and would deal with it this way. But then also he's in on the big joke, or, he's on the other side. So he knows, he's like, oh no, you guys are like literally just here. It's like, doesn't matter, Then my family went to There were just several other things that I just, like I said, I would have to get permission from my family to talk about them or whatever. But everyone in the family has had these very just cool dad synchronicities, just kind of nonstop. And my daughter, Coco, my stepmom, and one of my sisters went to because then my one sister was here and my dad said his message to her, like perfectly aligned with what she had already written for his memorial. It was very sweet. So then when they went to the other medium, I felt really bad for that lady because she didn't know until like 2/3 through the reading that he had just passed. And so the channel was not super clear. It's very clear when I listened to the recording. I'm like, I can see what dad's saying, but when people don't understand mediumship, they're looking for, like, you're looking for the person to be telling you like proof stuff or whatever. And it's like, he's actually just trying to convey things that he wants to convey, and he's trying to convey them through like pictures. And so he's trying to say things, and you know, he's saying 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's coming out A, B, C, D. And then, you know, if you don't know how to speak that language, then you're not getting the message. And also if you're coming from the mindset of like, just, you don't necessarily completely believe this is true, you don't know how to discern what he's saying, you know? And so finally the lady finds out that he has just passed, and then she's like, oh, that explains it. Okay, so we don't usually do this soon because he's still learning how to communicate. He doesn't have a lot of energy to do this. And that explains why you look the way you look. Like, you guys are not, you know. And she's very nice about it, but I was like, she was swimming upstream through the whole thing because it's just, channel's just not super open yet. He hung for a long time, and I think that he could do that because he was conscious and into this stuff before he passed. But yeah, so it's complex. It's all of these things. It's magic. It's beautiful. It's devastating. It's heartbreaking and hopeful. And, you know, it's opened me up already in so many ways. It's made me appreciate things I wasn't appreciating before. It's making me not want to take things for granted. It's making me want to embody the presence that he embodied and like really honor, you know, all the best parts of me came from him, you know? And then it's also just sad. And, you know, I think the sadness is fading for me more than everyone else probably, because I do feel that connection. And I do feel like his body was in rough shape. And so my empathy for him I do believe he fought to stay in the body for the wedding. Oh, there's this moment as we walk off the stage in the wedding, and I think he hugs us and says, now our family is complete.
Yeah. It's like he knew it was stable. It's like, okay for him to go now.
Yeah. I mean, he just was like, finally felt really good about all 3 of his daughter's husbands. And, you know, we also talked about how all 3 of our husbands are aspects of dad. Like, literally, my dad's fucking obsessed with sports and golf, and my sister's husband's literally a golf pro who looks like my dad in his 30s. Mm-hmm. My other sister's husband is a like super perfectionist. Construction feels like it doesn't give it justice, but like
he's like a builder or something.
Yeah,
he does tile, but he's getting into cabinets and very detail oriented, very creative.
Knows how to do everything just like my dad did, right? And
he's very like assertive, comes from a rough background, but has like a very like protective kind of assertive man kind of energy.
He's
which
like, yeah.
was a part of your dad that like was very much there, though also very soft.
Very soft and sensitive, but like like not non-confrontational.
Yeah.
Just like this vulnerable, but didn't take shit off of people.
Yeah.
And then and then my sister's husband's literally named Tom, same as my dad. Yeah. And then you embody his creativity and his like spirituality and his love for going down rabbit holes of knowledge. And you look, I didn't realize this till we were together for a little while, but you look kind of exactly how he looked when I was little. You know, he's naturally blonde with the mustache and so, you know, we did all go kind of seek out our dad.
as people do. Yeah, it felt very, the timing, as sad as it is, the timing was right, and like you can see looking back, like I think he was very relieved that everybody was finally in a stable relationship and had really found their partners and like, you know, had other stability in life with kids and stuff. I think that was, I mean, being a father, that's something that would definitely tether me here for a bit.
Right.
And it was like he was hanging on through all that pain.
It's also interesting because we weren't going to get married.
Yeah. And I think he already knew, you know, I had many conversations with him about how much I loved you and like how much I was here, you know, for the long haul. And I think he already like knew that. But for us, I think there was, and you know, I think he understood this watching the wedding, that we had a aversion to the cultural part of marriage, the governmental part of it. But we wanted to do like a proper ritual to represent our commitment and all of that. And I think, you know, he saw the subtleties that we did in that wedding ritual that maybe other people didn't pick up on, but he was noticing, you know, oh, this is obviously not the normal kind of wedding, but I wouldn't expect that from these two. And oh, I see what they're doing. They're doing this other kind of metaphysical, hyperdimensional kind of commitment. And I think for him, that was where the link was going to happen. You know, he trusted my word and he saw that we were in love, but that was the representation of like, okay, now they're really like stable. And I'm glad I got to have those conversations, you know.
Yeah, I remember when we decided to get married, and then I already had blabbed about it in my family group chat like 20 minutes later, so you didn't get to talk to my dad first. But when we went there in June, you had a conversation with him, and you were like, you know, when you're not here, I will take care of her and the kids, you know. And then he was like, well, what, you think I'm getting out of here soon or something?
And that was just before one of those big surgeries, you know, where I think in my head I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't want you to not come out of this and me had not had this conversation, you know. But it's so interesting with your dad and the relationship I had with him. It was just like talking to a friend. It wasn't like intimidating. I was nervous, but it wasn't like the same kind of thing when you're trying to typically have a conversation with the dad of the woman you're going to marry. You know, it's this, okay, like, can you pass her off to me kind of thing? Yeah. It wasn't that at all, you know. And I think he laughed. Even when I said that, I was like, I don't really believe in this. Like, you're not passing her off, dude. Like, you're here and I'm coming alongside you. But in the case that when you're not here, I just want you to know I'm going to do everything what I think you would do, you know, and take care of her. And he was very touched by that. And then he shared a lot of really interesting stuff, just the emotional, vulnerable person he was to me about his difficulties in accepting the kind of early parts of your childhood that he wasn't able to become aware of and do anything about until later in life, and how difficult that was for him to kind of process. And so it was like, yeah, it was a really, really great conversation that I'm really glad we got to have before he started to mentally kind of dissipate, you know, in those last couple months. And it was very clear in that wedding, you know, and he was there helping us plant bamboo weeks before that. with a collapsed lung. And all of us were trying to be like, hey, you don't need to do this. And he was like adamant. He's like, this is all I want to do. I don't want to be sitting at home. Are you kidding me? Like, I would rather be here. But it was hard because I could see he was in pain. And by the wedding, he was just hanging on barely, you know. So I'm glad that he was able to finally just let go and not be in that pain anymore.
Yeah, and I think that brings me more peace. You know, I also just, I think it's easier being, I don't live in Delaware. You know, I think that living in Delaware is driving past a bajillion memories with him, you know?
Yeah.
And like I said,
it's always a testament to, I think one of the hard things about like the death is like afterwards, how many people kind of show up and you really see how important somebody was that you maybe don't realize when they're alive, because everybody's kind of doing their own thing and you've come across people and you've influenced people, but you get distance and you kind of go your own ways. But when you hear someone that was important as passed, you know, I was amazed at how many people showed up, you know, like how effective he was as a projector and as someone that was really like trying to help people throughout a lot of his life. The amount of family that was there, but then the amount of like good friends in different places, like karaoke friends, golf friends, work friends, AA friends. And then I noticed there were certain people in there that were maybe like at AA meetings with him or had one conversation with him at a bar once and radically changed their lives.
Yeah.
And they were showing up just to be like, I'm here because this guy changed my life. And they didn't know anybody. They didn't know the family. They didn't know, you know, I watched one guy walk through that line and I was like bawling my eyes out because I could tell he was so affected and moved, but he didn't know anybody. And when he walked by your family, Kiki like went to kind of hug him and was like, do I know you? And he was like, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. Like, my condolences. Tommy was very special to me. And I could just tell he was like rough around the edges. Like, he'd been through some stuff, but he was like so emotional. And then I watched him, you know, walk up to your dad and like put his hand and just like have a conversation with him and then walked out. And then I didn't see him again. Like, I don't know if he hung around, but that was just so cool to see. And again, it makes you look at your own life, like how many opportunities we have to, you know, be there for somebody or just be present. And a lot of the times we're kind of stuck on our own issues and focused and taking things too seriously that you miss a lot of those opportunities. And I think he was just really good at recognizing somebody needing a little help with something and just being fully available. And so he could change someone's life in a 10-minute conversation at the bar, that he's at the bar playing pool, not drinking, but there's people drinking around and there's not a lot of judgment and stuff. And it was just really cool to see that. I think you guys planned for 150 people, right, to show up. And there were 275 people that showed up.
275 people signed the book. I mean, I don't sign books and stuff like that. So I think it was probably over 300.
It's just like, that's the important, it's like, it's such a, again, you look at your own life, it's like, that's what it's all about. Like to affect people in a way that like, you're almost not trying. Like, he was just being extremely authentic in who he was. That just cascaded out and affected people in ways that were so powerful that I don't think he even knew, you know, the effect that was having.
Yeah, I mean, I just kept saying he's like the quintessential projector because he was very extroverted. So he was out and about a lot, you know, he had to be moving at all times, but he was born to guide. It's all he wanted. And he could just see what was special about you and help you see it. And so, you know, he was very impactful when he died with 27 years sober. So he was very impactful in the rooms, you know, and he could just see people's talents and help them see it. I mean, he just was like the best parts of being a projector, and it's what brought him more joy than anything else. And, you know, it helped that he was like extremely magnetic and funny and talented. So people would be drawn to him for things like that. And then all of a sudden you get this like super vulnerable, you know, I'm making him sound like he's hyper emotional, and he wasn't. But he was capable of going there. Do you know what I mean? He could meet you anywhere you were.
Yeah.
And so I just been thinking about vulnerability so much. And so like literally vulnerability means like leaving yourself open to be hurt, right? I mean, I don't know if that's what it means, but like I'm looking at people now who are defensive, fragile, like attack, project, and they're all people who are not capable of being vulnerable. Like those are all things that people do when they're avoiding being vulnerable. And my dad would like let people witness him get good at things, you know, which a lot of people can't do. Like he was one of these people who's just great at everything, but he'd have a learning curve, and he would just like let you see him sing out a tune while he figured out a song, and let you see him try to figure something out. Like he didn't have like a fragile ego at all. And he would risk sounding dumb if it meant that it might help you, you know? And so he had that like openness. And because he had that openness, which he only had two in human design, he only had his throat and his ajna defined. And so he just was like quite literally super open.
Yeah.
And so because he had that openness, he just was very non-judgmental. You know, you could just be vulnerable with him. And he saw potential in people who other people thought were a lost cause, you know. So there are a lot of people who he helped, you know, through addiction and, you know, putting their lives back together and stuff, that like, he was just fucking an incredible person. And it was touching, but not even remotely surprising to see how many people were there. I mean, it was like standing room only. The overflow room was filled. The hallway was filled. The outside was filled. Like there was like not this, I'm sure a ton of people left because there was literally nowhere to be for the actual service. And
I'm sure there are a lot of people that, you know, couldn't make it. Your sister told me that every time they went on a cruise with them, they'd be in Jamaica or something, and he knew people in Jamaica. Everywhere they went, it was like, oh, hey, Tom. So I can't, you know, imagine how many people he actually did affect. And again, it's like, it's not the point necessarily. Like I do think in my life, I've always thought like, oh man, at my funeral, like I wonder how many people will show up. That'll really show like how effective I was. And it's like, it's not the point to try to like, I mean, I guess it is the point in a way to touch other people, to affect people, but it's just with him, it like wasn't that. He's just like, it's just who he was, you know? And I think we all, you know, the thing I can't help think about when we've been talking about this for a lot and like living in it, but it made me think like in the past, before I actually experienced death in my life, like my dad, you hear people talk about death and it is always very intense and emotional, and no matter who the person is that's dying, they always kind of like they were the best person in the world. You know, we have this thing when they're gone, we like lift them up and elevate them and don't really focus on some of the mistakes that they had. But it's just now when I've been through it, I'm like, oh, but when you're in it, like that's just like part of the process. And it's very true to the individual that experienced that person. And you can't really communicate that. So it always, when you haven't experienced it and you hear somebody talking about it, it sounds like they're all repeating the same thing. It's like, so why is your dad the best? You know, then I heard this guy's dad is also the best. And then when I lost my dad, no, mine was the best. And it's just like a way of trying to communicate like how influential and how like the individual experience was, and that's like, that is a part of the grief, you know? And so I can know when I was projecting that before when I would hear somebody, it was either coming from an inexperience of it or like an anger and an avoidance of my own fear of death or loss and like wanting to push that away. And therefore I'm projecting onto this other person. Yeah. Like get through it. Like death. Okay.
Everyone loses their parents.
Yeah. Everyone loses it. Just like, come on, but it's different. Like, I don't know, when you're in it, it's like one of those things, like you can't explain a full psychedelic experience. I think when you really go through a deep loss and grief, you can only explain so much. And therefore it sometimes sounds like a broken record. Like everybody's kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah. That's what it was like. I found myself getting kind of angry trying to make a post because I was like, oh, I can't download. Yeah. If you didn't know him.
Yeah.
I can't download and also maybe not want to talk at the funeral. And I just kind of spontaneously decided to get up there because I wasn't going to, because I kind of like everything I tried to write, I was like, what am I going to say? I say everything, and I think that's what I said. Like, I'm not ready to fucking try to distill everything that my father was down to some words. And everything I want to tell you about him is like cliche because my father was like cliche in that he was the highest expression of so many of the best things of being human. So I'm going to tell you to live every day to the fullest, like, because it's literally who he was, But yeah, I feel like I understand grief more now. I feel like I'm open to so much more complexity. I am very grateful for my relationship with death and my orientation to death already, because I have not really felt stuck in any type of mental thing around it. And I feel like I was able to hand myself over to the grief. Like I was not contracting from that at all. Now, full disclosure, I think if I was in my stepmom's shoes, it would be different. I think, not to like give a hierarchy to grief, but I think, to lose a partner is to lose a partner that you like, that you're bonded to, like that is to lose like your entire life. I think that paradigm shift, I would be much more,
yeah, that's difficult.
Or to lose a child or something, I think there's a natural order of things and we're kind of prepared to lose our parents at some point, and that doesn't make it less devastating, but I think it makes it less mentally, dangerous to get stuck. And I do believe in the West, we are orphaned from whatever our culture of origin is here in the United States, most of us. And then we just have this Christianity bullshit with this heaven and hell nonsense that doesn't really resonate. And so I think there is, because we don't have a healthy relationship and mythology around death, and culturally a lot of people do get stuck, but I think that like chances of getting stuck or risk of getting stuck is higher, when it's something like that, like someone that hadn't lived a full life, or, a child or a partner. Cause now it's not just like, oh, I fucking feel so bad for her. It's not just like him. It's like everything. It's what she, who she wakes up to. Like, oh, they were so fucking bonded together. And I caught myself, me and my sister both said this, like I caught myself like for a second wanting to close off my heart, because it's like to have a love like that, one of you's gonna have to go through it,
right?
And it's the depth of that love, and it's the depth of that loss. It's like, fuck, man, I don't know how she's functioning. Yeah. I don't think she is, but I guess I felt like I just needed to say, like, I don't think this is the fucking loss of a parent is emotionally very rough, but there is culturally at least some sort of bracing for it. And then obviously, like I said, I started bracing for it already, but I didn't contract from the feelings, which is a direct result of my healing my emotional body over the last whatever many years. And I was able to just hand myself emotionally to it because mentally I didn't get stuck in resistance, you know, where I think it is, I don't know, the advice I gave on TikTok or whatever is just develop your belief system around death before you experience a loss so that you can emotionally process a loss without mentally getting stuck in the it shouldn't or it's not fair or, you know, like resistance to it, because I think that's where people get stuck in a state and can't grieve, but then do not think that grief is a spiritual failing, you know, which is that new age spirituality conflates mental narratives and emotional experiences and sees emotional experiences as a spiritual failing, like, which I assume is where the person was coming from, like, take your own advice. And it's like, dog, he's been dead a week.
Yeah.
I am having feelings. I'm not a fucking spiritual robot, nor would I want to be. Like, this is the whole thing that we're here for, is to feel, you know? You feel the love, you feel the loss. And of course, it is just a transformation. Cool. That doesn't mean there's not a loss there, you know?
Yeah.
All right. I have to go to the bathroom. We did it. We're back.
We're back, and hopefully not skipping any weeks now. I think...
yeah, hopefully that was it for the...
the timeline adjustments.
The paradigm shifts. Please let us adjust to the ones we've got already.
Yeah, I'm eager to get back and talking and get creative again. You know, I do think on the other side of these big events that happen in your life, like, one, I feel like it's not to be alarmed to get thrown off of a timeline and get completely thrown into the abyss, which I feel like is what has happened. But as we've moved through it, like I can feel an expansion. For me, it is this thing, just whenever death like this, I'm immediately drawn to be present and thankful for shit that I hated, you know, stuff that was happening to me that I was so bitchy about. I'm just immediately like, oh, thank you.
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters. And I'm sick of like focusing on avoiding shit, you know? And so it makes you hyper present. And then I feel a welling up of like a desire to express purely and not overthink. And so having a creative outlet for me is like where that all happens. And I think sometimes heavy things that happen, loss, death, grief, or anything, is what fills the tank to express in reality and be present and be authentic, because you realize how fucking like transient everything is, you know? And so it lights a fire under you to kind of put those things aside, not bypass them, but just stop sitting on whatever it is you're sitting on, you know? And so I'm eager to get back to that. I think we're just trying to stabilize the foundation for a moment here, but it's already feeling like we're getting back in.
Is it funny we set the podcast back up in the living room, which is where we started it?
Yeah, that is interesting.
It'll probably be a while before we're back on video.
Yeah, we'll get back to it though.
Physically exhausted has been the most interesting symptom of grief. These solar storms are crazy.
Yeah, all at the same time. It seems to be significant to something.
There were all of these videos that we kept sharing back and forth from TikTok of people saying that like an absolute whirlwind of energy shifts were coming on October 30th. and he passed on October 29th. And I can't even like perceive the reality. Like everything is so surreal and ungrounded. And I get knocked off. Like if I get the flu, I get knocked into a different timeline. You know, it happens to me a lot. I am natally the cross of Sleeping Phoenix. So I get taken off of timelines that I wasn't ready to get taken off of all the fucking time. And I'm pretty good at just being along for the ride. But everything feels very surreal. I feel like I don't know.
And it's so hard. I know a lot of people experience this, but I just, even though I know this and I've learned it, like to just let go when the universe is like moving you through different timelines, especially if there's something that you don't feel like you're done with or something that you're enjoying, trying to resist it is like futile at some point. And I just, throughout this, it's like, it's very easy for me to get melancholic and nostalgic and kind of get depressed and feel like I had it a little bit ago and now I don't. And those are always the times where I'm like, okay, let's use something to make me feel better. And I've learned to not do that. And I guess the best thing is like, I mean, I say this and I knew it before, but I still get your ass handed to you, is that you just have to like let go. The quicker you do that and just try to stay afloat, it always does like turn out to be a better situation, and you expand the timelines that weren't supposed to be there, leave, and for reasons that you didn't necessarily know at the time. But there's just been multiple times, I mean, with my computer going down and all of this other stuff happening, that I've just been like, what do I have? What am I going to do? You know, except just sit here and rest and feel this stuff. But I can see why. It's like, it really is beautiful once you let go and just like be okay with being where you're at, even if it feels like you've backstepped or you're stuck. It's like having to open up is like where the access point is. But it's just much easier to think if you close down or do some drugs or do something to bypass it, that's going to fix it. And I don't, in my experience, it hasn't. It's complicated things.
I guess I wanted to say this here, and I don't think I have said this to you. I'm so grateful you were sober for this experience. I mean, that wasn't the part I wanted to say here, but I didn't want to leave this out of the story, that Mark was an incredible support through this. And my family has not stopped talking about how incredible you, and also my sister's husband, who didn't have to work because of dumb fucking capitalism. But, you know, Mark has like a projector size battery, and I don't know where you were finding the extra, where you were drawing the extra from, but I just didn't have to think about anything. I didn't have to worry about anything. Like Mark was right there. If I needed something to eat, if I needed something to drink, if I needed to cry, and, you know, like he would wake up out of a dead sleep and I would be like kind of crying in bed, and he, you know, and there was a presence that was the direct result of the fact that you were sober. And I know that when we don't have to leave this part in, but when we went through the miscarriage and I couldn't articulate to you like that it didn't feel like you were there, because like physically you were making me food, you were bringing me whatever, but you weren't there with me, and I could never articulate why. And I wasn't trying to make you feel like shit, but I felt alone in that experience. And this time you and Coco were both completely sober, where typically, you know, because the rest of my family was like drinking wine, and when that happens, and, you know, they can deal with things however they want to deal with things, but I'm left alone in the moment. You know, I'm not numbed out. I'm just in this fucking moment right now. And to have you and Coco in that moment with me was so, I mean, obviously Coco, my dad was a dad to her. She's so close she's closer in age to my siblings than I am. So I had her when I was 17. So they're all like 7 years apart and shit, 6 and 7 years apart. So she's like a sibling. So she was grieving herself, but she was present in it the whole time. But to have my partner be in it, like, I don't know how to describe it, but I was so fucking grateful for how to have you. Like, I was kept calling you my emotional support husband because I wouldn't go anywhere without you or do anything without you. I only recently started like kind of drifting and going into my own energy. And I know that that's, you thrive off of a lot of alone time. I will never, ever, ever forget, how there for me you were through this. And I remember when we were about a year in, because your mom is pretty fucking amazing as well. And we fell in love with each other's opposite sex parent, pretty early. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to bury our parents together.
Yeah.
I didn't really want it to be this soon, but, yeah, I was just extremely grateful for the level of presence that you had through this experience, and extremely grateful that this happened at a point when you and Coco just happened to both not be smoking weed, and proud of both of you for not, because there was weed.
Yeah, me and Coco both a couple of times were like, you smell that? Like, it'd be very easy to just go do that right now.
Oh, it would have I'm all about like live and let live, but I would have felt so fucking alone if I was the only sober person at night,
I know for Coco, I think she had some really great conversations with your dad not long ago, kind of around that and what he stood for as far as like sobriety and stuff, I think has now become pretty inspiring to her. And so I could see her just like pretty easily pushing that away, like the temptation to go do it.
And no offense to people who drink and smoke, but when you drink and smoke, you're on a frequency, and you're just not on the same frequency as someone, not a better frequency, but it's when you're the sober person who's just like, I'm just going to sit in this no matter how uncomfortable it is. I'm not going to alter at all. And then everyone else around you alters. You're like literally frequency wise, just completely in a space by yourself.
Yeah.
And societally, it's so normal to alter through these experiences, which I have always, specifically with alcohol, always thought was strange because, I don't know, just slows the grief process down as far as I'm concerned. But to each their own.
And I think it's just specifically with me and Coco, I think we'd been through a lot of trying to oscillate on and off and have a healthy relationship with it. Spiritually, it's opening and has helped process certain things in life. But I think we've both had to learn the hard way that it's like, you're not able to get as deep. Again, it's maybe not true for everybody, but it in that situation, it would have been very easy to kind of like bend back and just numb out with it. And I don't know, for me, maybe I was getting extra energy from your dad. Now that he was gone, I was able to have an extra battery pack. But I think for me to go it would have felt a little bit disrespectful or something to just jump back into that. Also, I'm not really into drinking weed. I would rather smoke it. So,
oh yeah, my family was drinking.
Most people were drinking the weed. I did try. I took a sip of it because I was like, "What is this? Can you actually taste the?" I knew damn well I wasn't going to get high, but I didn't like the taste either. It's like it's like a flavored bong water or something. Is what it tastes like. I immediately was like, "Oh no, ew."
Yuck. All right. Well, I think this is 9 hours long.
Yeah. Hopefully next week it'll be a little lighter.
Yeah. Are you feeling better?
I actually am feeling better now that we like kind of talked through some. This morning I woke up and was just feeling that that kind of hopelessness, the depression of like, I feel so far off a timeline that we were on not that long ago, and I'm not really sure why or how what I feel about it. You know, it's like it's just floaty, and I feel very closed off to just conscious ideas and this like exploration and like what is hacking the matrix and all of that is just like not there right now. I feel conscious, I feel present, but I feel like I'm kind of waiting around for something to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And that can be just like depressing feeling, you know? But yeah, talking about this, I think was nice. And I do think I'm grieving stuff in a more than I thought I would too, you know?
Yeah.
I was surprised at how, when I started to cry earlier, that I was like convulsing. I was holding down. So I might need to cry it out a bit more still, you know, but it could be that. Because the other day, like I said, I was trying to clean up my computer and I had to go through an old hard drive and stumbled upon some old photos that were interestingly like out of order. And so I just started scrolling through them, and it was giving me like a mock life review in a weird way that was so heavy for some reason. And I just spent 20 minutes doing it. And then we had to go to Phoenix's play, and I like stepped out of the studio and was like, what is this house? Where am I? What part? And it's like a nostalgia heaviness. Again, it's not like a regret, but I'm kind of like just putting it all in a big scope. And then being so close with the grief of your dad, it's just like sloshing around in reality. I don't know really where to ground, you know, and that's a odd feeling sometimes, I think. No matter how much you can stay conscious in it, again, is a moment where I'm like, can I make this go away right now? Like, can I go grab a substance or do something? And just having to remind yourself, like, no, that what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, you're still breathing, you know? So this morning, I think I had some weird dreams and woke up with a headache and was trying to read a book and kind of confused. So I think talking through this has helped it a bit. And I do think for me, the instinct is that there's just a lot of timeline shifts happening, and that there's some processing needing to occur when you have those big timeline shifts, that you have to kind of rifle through the deck of experiences and process some things to stabilize, you know, and that's just like uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, the change, the impermanence. I feel like you're 40, you turned 40, you're almost 41 now, and I can't remember what it is astrologically, but it's like why people have like a midlife crisis or whatever, because it's like 40 is where you start to go like, oh shit, like, well, the passage of time and all of these things that changed already, and they're just going to continue to change, and then parents start dying and shit, and you're like, you know, not that some people don't lose their parents earlier, but that was fucking me up a lot in the grief, is just like all of these eras of my life are over, and now the era of my dad being in my life is over, you know, and it's like I'm next on deck, and I can't get any of these moments back, and I didn't appreciate the moments enough, and now there's moments right now, you know, we're going to Phoenix's play, and one day I'm going to look back and I got to make sure I get a picture. And it's like,
the craziest thing, man. It's so psychedelic. That's what it makes you want to just go out and like, when you're just looking at the leaves on a tree that are falling right now, you're just kind of like, I love you and I enjoy you. Don't fall. Yeah. Oh, you're gone now too. Like every little passing moment has this profound magic to it. And I think that is the hard thing about all of this, is like the magic of that present moment and how profound it can be, so much to the point where like time goes away, but with the ease of which it is to just gloss over that and get distracted to the next thing, plan for something in the future, or just dwell on something in the past and miss these like profound moments. Like every fucking second is happening. The potential of like moving into that space with a full awareness, I think, is the point. And there's something to that it's difficult for a reason, and there's distractions for a reason. And to me, there's some kind of portal opening into that. And I've experienced it in psychedelics where 5 seconds can feel like an eternity, and there's like dimensions in there, and it's so hard to hold the mind in that focus, that there's something to that. And when we have loss and death and go through this grief, like there is an opportunity to like see that again and grab hold and make changes in your life that seemed to be insurmountable before. And like all of a sudden you have this gift of being reminded how magical impermanence can actually be. Mm-hmm. And the access point is to like be extremely present. And to do that, you can't have these attachments to like, what if I did it differently and something in the past I didn't like, or, you know, next week I'm going to get there. It'll be better when I get somewhere. It's like all right in that present moment. If you can stop the looping of the mind and like emotionally move into it. But man, is it fucking hard. And I think that's what the gift of this kind of experience, and always being, as a lot of the sages say, is like being very connected to death at all times while you're living, because that's how you're reminded how special it all is. Yeah.
I gotta go, but this makes me think of the 20th gene key / gate, which is the now, and is a construct of the Cross of Sleeping Phoenix. And in the Cross of Planning, we had continuity as a construct. And so we were as tuned into the past and the future as we were the moment. I would say more past than future. Obsessed with history, constantly trying to like create something for the future. And we're losing that linearity, which is why we're losing that continuity, linearity illusion, because that construct is going away and we're only going to have the present moment, which is why everyone is like, where's my memory? Mm. Because the memory will become something we access through right brain, like awareness, almost like Akashic record awareness, rather than it's all held inside of us.
So it's in the moment when you need that memory, it'll pop in.
Yeah. You almost channel your memories rather than like can just look back. But the point won't be the past and the future. Like that was because we were building infrastructure was the point of that. And we're losing that, right? And like history is starting to turn into this subjective thing, and we aren't able to make plans. You like literally cannot plan for anything. You're just kind of along for the ride. I thought that during the wedding, where like we're getting to the point where everything has to be spontaneous. We barely were able to plan the wedding, and we had to plan it because everyone's scattered around the country. But the plan still didn't work out because because I didn't want like a rando photographer that I don't know in this very intimate moment. So I wanted it to be a close friend. And so he was going to come. So there just like wasn't, it's whatever. It's all that 20th, right? It's just present moment. And that's one thing. Like if I could describe my dad, it would be vulnerability. It would be presence. And that is it's a construct of the Cross of Sleeping Phoenix. It's the one I feel like I haven't really seen open up in my life. I would not call me present, It's getting better, but like I was definitely super dissociated most of my life. And death definitely reminds you to be present. Like now every moment I have this awareness, and I'm sure this will fade with time, but this awareness that like I'm one day going to look, you know what I mean? Like I'm one day going to wish I was present in this moment. I'm going to wish I had a fixture of Phoenix after their play. Like I wish
That's the hard part when I look at old photos, is I realize my lack of presence in some of those special moments. And they're only really special when I'm looking at it in a photograph and I'm so distant from it that I'm like, whoa, in contrast to where I'm at now, that's so different. Look at that, how magical that was. And then I can tune into where I was consciously at that point, and I'm pissed because of something someone said, or I'm circling on something and I don't want to be there. And it's alarming to look at how many times in my life where I fondly look at the photo from this point and realize how not there I was.
Yeah.
And so the memory's only in the photo. Like the experience is locked up in some other kind of thing I was focused on instead of being there and enjoying it. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's so hard because like, I don't blame myself. I was going through a lot of shit. And of course I was focused on something else, but for what? Like, I don't know. I mean, I figured it out. I solved those problems or they went away and they weren't that big of a deal. And you were standing on the wall of China and you don't even remember what the fucking thing was. Like, I don't remember any of that. So many of those band photos that were like, I'm in magnificent places and such a fun thing. And I see it in the photo and that's like kind of all that there is. Like, it's very hard for me to tune into the memory of being there and, you know, all for what? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like you got to be thankful for everything. I woke up through all of it, so it was for something, you know. But the point is, it's missed opportunities of presence, I think, are a shame, you know.
Maybe we couldn't be present if we weren't awake.
Yeah.
All right, love you. Bye.
Bye.
I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall and the major lift, and the baffled king composing hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair. She broke your crown and she cut your hair. And from your lips she drew the hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Maybe I have been here before. I know this room and I've walked this floor. I used to live alone before I knew you. I've seen your flag on the marble arch. Love is not a victory march. It's a code and it's a broken hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. There was a time you let me know what's real and going on below, but now you never show it to me, do you? Remember when I moved in you, the Holy God was moving too, and every breath we drew was hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Maybe there's a God above, and all I ever learned from love was how to shoot at someone who outdrew you. And it's not a cry you can hear at night. It's not somebody who's seen the light. It's a chord and it's a broken hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.